Welcome back, everyone, to Lab 4, Sheet 2, which is the last drawing for this week. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to pick up just where we left off in the last video. All right, so where we left off in Lab 4, Sheet 1, we had not plotted our drawing yet. We ended up finishing up with our dimensions. All of our layers are correct, and we have Sheet 1 and Sheet 2. Now, currently, Sheet 1 and Sheet 2 both have exactly the same drawing, except if you notice, we rearranged Sheet 1 a little bit. We adjusted where the drawing was in the viewport. If you notice the white space here between the 2-inch dimension on Sheet 1 and the 2-inch dimension on Sheet 2, it's a little closer on Sheet 2 because we have not adjusted Sheet 2 yet. So for now, just don't worry about this. And once we complete Sheet 2, this drawing, we can adjust the viewport to center the new drawing that we're going to create into the center of Sheet 2. So now let's go ahead and click over to Model Space and go ahead and zoom out. So now, one of the last things we did in the Sheet 1 video was delete our 8.5 by 11 rectangle that we used to position in the previous labs so that we could always draw where the viewport was. So this time, we don't have that reference and we're not using the grid. So in this case, let's go ahead and just create another rectangle here. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool, which you can find up in the Draw toolbar. Alternatively, I'm going to click REC enter for rectangle. I'm just going to kind of specify somewhere down in here, B enter for dimensions, and this is going to be 11, enter, 8.5, enter. And then go ahead and place this rectangle in the top right quadrant so that it is somewhat even with where our original rectangle was. Now, whatever your layer is at this time, mine was dimensions because that's where I left my title block last time. I'm going to first go ahead and change my global line type layer to lines. And then I'm going to highlight my new rectangle, and I'm going to put that rectangle on the 0 layer. It doesn't have to be on a line layer. We're going to delete it later. This is just for reference for us. Now, at this time, come off to the right side of this rectangle. L enter for your line tool, and just kind of start, in this area right here, it's kind of an arbitrary point, drag it straight out to the right and type 100, enter, and then double click the middle mouse wheel. So the reason we did that, we can actually delete that line now. The reason we did that is because now where we are here is going to be a good place to draw our Lab 4 Sheet 2 in inches. We're going to use the millimeter dimensions on the drawing, which are these dimensions right here, the 10 in the brackets, the 10, the 50, the 40. We're going to use those as inch dimensions, and then we're going to scale it down to millimeters. So we're going to draw this. It's going to be really big, and then we're going to scale it down to fit onto this sheet. And with that, let's go ahead and get drawing. So first thing here, grab your line tool. And at this point, I'm not going to spoon feed every single time I enter a command. I will remind some of the ones that we don't use very often, but stuff like the line tool or the circle tool, that kind of thing, I'm not going to say every single time. You know that stuff like line and circle and rectangle can be found up in the draw command. Also the ellipse tool, we will be using that today. That being said, I will remind you where that is. Then things like move or mirror or offset are going to be up here in the modify toolbar. So with that, L enter for line and kind of start somewhere. Let's start a little farther away, maybe somewhere like this. Drag it straight out to the right. And we are going to type the @ symbol and 33. Tab 90, enter. So what we're saying is that is going to be a 33-inch line at 90 degrees. That's distance and bearing. We haven't done that since the first week. Now above the 0 point here, type @20, 17, enter. Then we're going to type 20, tab 0, enter. Then kind of drag down in this general direction here, and we're going to type the @ 70, tab -56. Just like that, you're going to have this really long line that extends way below where you initially started. Now from here, take your line tool, drag it straight out. I'll just say about 100. 100 at 0 degrees, or you could just kind of drag it straight out so it snaps, type 100, enter, and that will work as well. Now from here, we are going to highlight this bottom horizontal line and O, enter to offset. And we're going to offset that at 20 inches towards the top and go ahead and left click. Now, next thing we're going to do, go ahead and grab your line tool. Select this intersection point here. If it's not snapping, it is likely that you do not have intersection turned on. So go ahead and make sure that your intersection snap is turned on, which is right here. So again, L, enter for line, grab your intersection and snap perpendicular to the bottom horizontal line. And with that, TR, enter, enter, we can go ahead and trim and delete these extra lines. Now, before we do anything else, let's go ahead. This line here is actually going to be a hidden line. You'll see, and actually I can pull it up right here. I have a 3D version of this part. So we are looking at it from this view right here. We haven't drawn our slot yet, but when we look at this from a hidden, with our hidden lines visible, we can see that there is this horizontal line here, which is this line that we have just drawn, and that is actually a hidden line. And what it is that we're looking at there is this shelf, this cut on the backside. So we can't see that in the view we're looking at, but the reason that we're calling that out as a hidden line is because if you were going to look as like an X-ray through this part, you would see that as a hidden horizontal line. So what we're going to do here is highlight that line and put that on the hidden layer. Now, we're not actually going to use our grid here, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it on because I want to show you what it is that we're doing here in this next step. And when you turn the grid on, because of that setting that we set the very first day when we created our title block to not display the grid beyond limits, our grid is only here where we have our Lab4 Sheet 1 drawing. So what we want to do is right-click the little grid icon, go into Grid Settings, and check the box next to Display Grid Beyond Limits and click OK. Now that will display the infinite grid, which is the default in AutoCAD when you first open it up without any sort of additional formatting. Now from here, we have to create these lines here. So these lines are actually at 34 degrees. They're perpendicular to this diagonal here. And the easiest way to do that, so you can use the perpendicular snap tool, but really, honestly, the easiest way to do this is going to be selecting this little XY indicator here. That's actually called the UCS. And go ahead and select it, right click, and rotate the axis around the Z axis. And we are going to rotate that at 34 degrees. And as soon as we do that, you're going to see that our entire grid has now rotated 34 degrees. And what that means is if you try to create a line at 0, it's actually not going to snap at 0, what has always been 0. And it's going to say that that's actually about 34 degrees right there, which it is. 0 is now in line with the grid, which would be perpendicular to this line here. What I want you to do, grab your line tool, select this endpoint here, and at an arbitrary distance, I'm just going to say like 70, kind of snap out in this direction until you get your green snapper, your polar tracking snap. Type 70, enter, and that line then is going to give you a starting point for the offset command. So let's go ahead and O, enter to offset, and we are going to offset in 10-inch intervals. Nope. Just like that. And we're going to keep offsetting until we have 4 lines. Go ahead and delete the bottom line, which is the original line. Now this top line here, go ahead and offset that 5 inches down towards the bottom, just like that. And now we can trim off this excess. So you can just go ahead and TR, enter, trim off like that. And that works just fine. So from here, select the UCS again. So just left click on it, then right click, rotate around the Z, and we're going to type -34, enter. And that is going to get your grid back to 0. So now when we use a line tool, 0 should snap as normal. With that, let's go ahead and turn off the grid. The only thing left to do in this view are these 2 lines here are actually going to be hidden lines, because those lines are indicating that there is a cut through this part. If we look at our 3D model here, we can see that those lines are actually showing us this hole right here all the way through the part. When we look at it from the front view, we can see hidden line, diagonal down where the cut is, and then there is this shelf, which is the horizontal hidden line here. Next, we're going to go ahead and draw the top view. So with that, let's grab some construction lines. Remember, we froze construction lines previously, so let's go ahead and unfreeze. We're going to have to remember to freeze this again later, because now we have our construction lines visible in our original drawing. If we do not turn this layer back off or freeze this layer again, these lines will be visible when we go to plot, which we do not want, and you will lose points if those lines are visible. So I would suggest either deleting them or following along with me till the very end of the video, and I will remind you to turn them off. And from this point, let's go ahead and grab our construction line layer. Remember, nothing can be selected. Just make sure nothing's selected and go ahead and change your layer to construction. Type RAY, enter for the ray tool, and we're going to draw vertical lines at all important points. Just like that. And at this point, let's go ahead and change our layer back to lines. And for right now, just for this one operation, we're going to turn on our nearest. And if we don't have nearest on and we try to snap to this line, it's going to snap to the nearest end point or intersection. So we have to have nearest on to be able to snap in this area up here. So let's go ahead and turn that on. See, now we can snap. So go ahead and snap, draw a line until you hit the perpendicular mark on the right side here, and go ahead and turn nearest off. From here, offset this lower horizontal, what will be our lower horizontal line, by 50. And then go ahead and offset it again by 10. And we're going to do that until we have 6 lines. And then go ahead and connect the top and the bottom vertically. Just like that. And looking at our assignment, we can see right here, none of these lines actually extend past this last 10-inch interval here. So we're just going to go ahead, select that 10-inch interval right there, TR, enter once, and then go ahead and trim off everything above it. From there, we can offset this bottom line, O, enter, 3, enter, towards the top. We're getting that dimension if we look right here. We are getting that dimension. I have pre-positioned this 45-degree line here for our projection. And if I grab my multi-line tool here, we can see, oops, I didn't grab that very well. We can see that this dimension right here for our slot, if we project it at the 45-degree projection line, comes from right here, where we have the 3-inch slot depth dimensioned. So that is where we got that information. Now, the visible portion of the slot is going to be right in here. So what we can do is with our, go ahead and click escape to get out of there. With our line layer selected, make sure that you are following the correct lines here. Go ahead and make a square, and then the rest of this line here is going to actually be, I'm just going to drag this back like that, and the rest of this line, we can highlight that and make that hidden. There are 2 other hidden lines in this view, and they are also going to be for the cut, and it's going to be this horizontal line, which would be the second of our offset 10 lines, and our third one. Those 2 are both going to be hidden, and those hidden lines are going to stop where the center of this cutout is. The center of this cutout happens to be what's called collinear with the bottom of this slot. So this is actually going to be the center line for this hole. Unfortunately, just for our view that we're looking at, you don't really see that center line because there is a visible line from the outside that you're going to see instead. And just to illustrate that a little bit better, we can see if we're looking at this, the center of that circle is actually going to be exactly in line with the bottom of this slot. So we're not going to be able to see that center line. But knowing that that's where it is, we have the information for the top and the bottom of our slot. We have the hidden lines here and here. What we can actually do is back those hidden lines down. Just go ahead and select the pick point at the end, back them down to where the center point is. And then we can go ahead and with our holes layer active, grab our ellipse tool, which is right here. If it's not the first one, if you have one of these other ones here, it's the center ellipse that you want to use. Go ahead and grab that. Select the center of what will be our ellipse. Drag it straight up, and then drag it straight out to where that line is. And we can verify by looking at all of the lines, starting with the hidden lines in both of these views, as to where that ellipse is. We have a center line, we have two center lines of the ellipse, and we have 2 outer edges on the top and on the front view. That is how we're lining up where to create that ellipse. Last thing on this one, back this line out here, and this is going to the center, and this is going to be a center line, just like that. And with that, we can go ahead and trim everything, or we can just go ahead and delete everything, except for those 2 vertical lines right there. Now, those 2 vertical lines are going to be visible. We're going to change those to lines on the lines layer. Go ahead and select that bottom horizontal line here. Use that as a cutting tool, TR, enter once, and then you can trim off what is below it. And with that, we are almost done with our top view. Last thing we have to do here, and this is, I will say, it can be a little confusing the first time you see it. So what I'm going to show you here is how all of these hidden lines all of the construction lines for the hole actually work. So when we're placing these ellipses, and actually I have to draw this one here, just like that. So when we're looking at our front view, this is a center line, right, of our cut. We actually have to, when we draw the top view, we can't start our ellipse right at this point right here. We actually have to, when we project this, we have to extend as if this circle came all the way through the part and then was then flat on the table right here. And then project that all the way up and start that ellipse where it intersects with the center line in this view. So this ellipse here is actually going to be, if this was projected all the way flat onto this table, it'll just say this is a table that this piece is sitting on. We're going to mirror that. And if we project the circle completely down flat to where it would be the table that this is sitting on, or the floor that this is sitting on, and then project that straight up, we can see that this projection through this part, that is actually how this circle projects up and through. So we can see we have a center line, our center line, our center line, just like that, coming all the way through here. That center line does not, in this view, it does not project. It just was where the circle comes out at the bottom of the part. So you can kind of start to see here how this projection actually works. So to get where we are here, we could trace these lines all the way down to this table, projecting straight up. And that is where we get the center of our new ellipse right here. So in order to do that, we are going to type F enter for fillet, R enter for radius, 0 enter for a radius of 0. And go ahead and select this line right here, the bottom of your slot, and this line right here, your bottom horizontal line. And that's going to go ahead and create an extension of our center line. Now, with our construction line selected, L enter for line. Let's just bring this line straight up. And I'm just going to hover over the top hidden line here, the top horizontal hidden line, and then come back it off to the left until it snaps vertically and perpendicular. Go ahead and click, and then extend that line out to where it meets with the part. L enter again, and just draw this line here. And now with that, change your layer to hidden lines. We can grab our ellipse tool, start at our new center point, out to extent here. And then actually I accidentally deleted the line that we need here. So I'm going to go ahead and snap to it that way. If that doesn't work for you, if nearest is still on, what I just did will not work. Alternatively, what you can do is just go ahead and create a new vertical construction line and then go ahead and snap to that point, just like that. That's totally fine. With that, TR, enter, enter. You can trim off all of these lines here and go ahead and delete those. And then go ahead and trim off these as well. With that, we have our first two views. And now all we have to do is our right view, which we will be using our favorite projection technique. Now for this view, I'm going to type XL enter for a construction line, A enter for angle, 45 enter for 45 degrees. And I'm just going to select this point. It really is okay anywhere. I just kind of like to select this point, which works for me. I'm going to go ahead like that. And I'm going to use horizontal raise, starting at the bottom right point there. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that around to everywhere that is a significant point in our top view. Now I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up a little bit. Again, this is always optional. I choose to do it every single time, whether I'm teaching or I'm working professionally, because I feel like it's just easier to see everything. when you have all your lines cleaned up. With that, let's go ahead and project our vertical lines down from this 45-degree projection. And what we're really doing here, if we had a copy of this, what that 45-degree line allows us to do is if we had a copy of this and we just rotated it, we can take this and literally just set it down right here. And we can see, so all we're doing with this projection line is not having to copy and rotate this to create vertical extension lines directly from this drawing. And that's why you also have to have this at 45 degrees, because if you don't, where this is going to intersect all of these lines is not going to be in the right location. So that's what we're really doing here with these lines here, with these projection lines. With that, let's go ahead and create rays from our front view. Go ahead and copy this around to all our important parts. It looks like I missed one. Put that there. Now, you might think we're done here, but we are actually not. There are 4 more lines. We have one here, here, and here. So don't forget, these ones in the back are very important. You need to have these in there. And first things first, this right here is going to be a hidden line. So let's just go ahead and turn that to a hidden line. We can trim that. It's going to go all the way through from here to here. So go ahead and highlight this line, vertical line, and this vertical line. TR, enter once, and we can go ahead and just trim that out. That gets that out of the way. And what that is showing, if we go to our SolidWorks drawing here, so what that is actually showing is when we look at this from our right view, this here is just showing, change my shading, is showing this line here when we're looking at it from this view. So that is the hidden line that we just created. With that, I'm just going to go ahead and turn that back to hidden lines visible mode and jump back into AutoCAD. So with that, let's go ahead, instead of using our line tool, I'm going to grab the polyline tool right here and use this to create the rest of our lines here. And it looks like I'm accidentally still in construction lines. That is okay, as long as go ahead and select my construction lines here and turn those to the lines layer. If that got really confusing for you, feel free, if you were still on construction lines when you created that line, just click escape, click out of it, go ahead and change your layer to the lines layer, and then you can go ahead and do it again. Because we used a polyline, now if we select this border, it's already going to be joined. So that's the difference between using a polyline and the line tool. So with the line tool, we can create all of these individual lines, but that's all they are, individual lines. When we use the polyline tool, which you can just click here, or you can type P line. Anytime we create all those lines like that, it's going to join them. It's going to pre-join them. So that's one benefit to using the polyline tool instead of the line tool. And I think this is the first time we've actually used that instead of creating polylines by joining line segments. So with that, let's go ahead and get our circle placed. So we have our center line here. We have our hidden lines here. Same thing in this view. So let's just trace those out. So we have our hidden lines here, our center line here. And one way to really keep track of this, just for for yourself as you're going through this, you can go ahead and highlight. It's like I'm highlighting the hidden lines. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change these to just some arbitrary color. I'm going to make those greenish, like a kind of green color. And then our center lines, we can make those even a different color. So let's make those like gray. And with that, now we can see where the center of our ellipse is going to be and where the extents of our ellipse is going to be. So go ahead and grab our ellipse tool, drag it straight up and drag it straight over so that it intersects with the green lines and starts where the gray lines meet. A little accident here. What's going on? So it looks like this is not lining up correctly. And why that is because when I was creating these rays, I didn't notice that my extension from this center line was not lined up properly. So that just even illustrates more so why it's so important to make sure that all of your construction lines are projecting properly. Otherwise, you're going to have something happen like that, and you're not going to be able to fix it. So with that, let's go ahead. I'm just going to recreate my ellipse, grab my ellipse tool, start where the gray lines intersect, snap to the green, snap to the green, and now we can see and verify visually that we do in fact meet all the lines that we need to. And with that, let's go ahead and trace these lines out even further. So where this ellipse cuts through the bottom of the part is where this line is right here. The center line intersects with this line right here. So we know that our center point is going to be here. We're going to meet these green lines here. And then the other extent, the vertical extent, is going to be this line. So let's grab our ellipse tool. Start right here, meet the green, and then come straight up just like this. And we can just double check, make sure everything's still good. Yes, we are lined up with the center line, and we are lined up with where it cuts out the back there. And with that, let's go ahead and turn this into a hidden line. And this upper ellipse, this is going to be on the holes layer. So just select that, put it on the holes layer. And here, let's go ahead and TR, enter, enter. We can trim that off there like that. Trim off everything down below. And you know what? Let's trim off all these extra lines as well. We can also go ahead and trim these lines. We've used all of these, all that we're going to. Now, this line here, we are actually going to see that in this front view. So I'm just going to use this construction line instead of drawing another line on top of it. I'm just going to stretch that back, highlight it, put that on the lines layer, and then let's just look at what that line is that we're seeing. So what that line is, if I turn this back onto shaded mode, what that line is just this line here coming all the way across. We can see that. When you look at this from the right view, this is a visible line here. So that's why we're looking at that in the AutoCAD. That's why we're leaving that as a visible line. So let's go ahead and leave that. And I accidentally deleted this, the bottom of the slot. We actually do need that because where this slot is cutting through, we can see this is the visible portion of the slot. We can see that in SolidWorks as well. This is the visible portion. When we look at it from the front, there it is. And then when we look at it, when we have hidden lines visible, we are seeing where it cuts out the back as well. So that is what we are looking at here. So I can grab my lines layer, rectangle tool, visible rectangle here. Go ahead and delete these lines. Now, this line, this is going to be hidden between here and here. So first things first, let's go ahead and change over to our hidden layer, line tool, straight down, straight over, and then go ahead and highlight this lower horizontal line, CO, enter to copy. Alternatively, you can grab it up in the modify toolbar, and we're going to copy that straight up, just like that. With that, we can go ahead and delete the rest of our lines. And last but not least, we need a center line. Starting from the center here, all the way down to the bottom, just like that. And with that, all we have to do is scale this down so that it fits on our sheet of paper down here, and then throw some dimensions on. So how we scale this down, we have drawn this using the millimeter dimensions here, but we've used them as inches. So 1 inch is 25.4 millimeters. So if I grab my calculator here and I type 1 inch divided by 25.4 millimeters, we get this big long decimal here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the first 10 digits of that. You can just grab the whole thing if you really want. But what we're going to do here is highlight our entire new drawing. Keep in mind, we are not highlighting the original drawing, just our new drawing. SC, enter for scale. Click on the lower left point of our front view. And it's going to ask for a scale factor. So the scale factor we're going to use is 0.0393700,787. Enter. And again, you can do this calculation yourself. 1 divided by 25.4, and that is the millimeter to inch conversion. Well, inch to millimeter, millimeter to inch. So if you're drawing in millimeters and you need to know what 5 inches is, you would do 5 times 25.4. If you've drawn in millimeters and you need to go to inches, you would multiply by 0.0393700,787, which is 1 divided by 25.4. With that, let's go ahead and move our drawing. Just going to move it onto the sheet just like this. Let's go ahead and delete this line here too. Do a right crossing window, not a left crossing window because you'll select everything. Just a right crossing window, go ahead and delete that yellow line there. And with that, let's go ahead and grab our dimension layer, the drop down. DIM, enter for dimension. And go ahead and grab this point and this point, and we're just going to drag it out to the left about 1/2 inch, just like that. Now, from here, let's go ahead and make some changes to the Dimension Style Manager. As you can see in your assignment sheet, and this is just a pre-plotted what you're going to submit, but on the second sheet, we have this dual dimension scheme here. So we don't want to change the dimensions that are already over here on sheet 1. Oh, and here while we're thinking about it, let's go ahead and freeze our construction layer so that we won't see those when we plot later. And from here, go up into your annotation tab, grab the Dimension Style Manager, this little button right here. Remember, you can also just type in dim_sty, enter if you want to, if you prefer to use the keyboard. Now, instead of modifying standard, which is what this dimension scheme is right here, with the 2 decimal places and inches only, let's go ahead and click new. And when we do that, it gives us an option to just make a copy of the standard dimension style. So we're going to rename this custom. And we're going to start with the standard one. I mean, annotative is default, standard is default. So we're just going to copy the standard dimension scheme and use it for all dimensions and click continue. Now that will bring up a new dimension style. It's just the same Dimension Style Manager in the Modify tab as you've used before, but in this one, we are creating a brand new one, starting from where we were with the standard. So all those settings are the same. So first, let's go over to fit and let's change our fit to 0.6. Click enter. Primary units, change our precision to 4 decimal places. Then click over to alternate units, display alternate units. So this is going to give us millimeters because we're multiplying our scale factor is 25.4 for all units. That means so there's 25.4 millimeters per inch. Now, while we're going to make the placement below primary value and go ahead and click OK and close. Now, up in our annotation toolbar, in the drop down next to the Dimension Style Manager button, in this little drop down here, now we have standard and custom. And don't worry about annotative. We're not using that in this class. It has to do with how dimensions are shown across different viewports and between model space and paper space, but we're not going into that in this class. So now, just like our layers, where we have multiple options for layers, we also have multiple options for dimensioning. So these dimensions over here on this piece, we are going to use our custom dimension style. And just like a layer, if you don't have anything selected, you can come up here and change it globally. If you do have something selected, you can come up here and change it only for that item, just like that. So now this dimension is on our custom dimension standard setting. And these dimensions right here, as we can see, are on our standard. You can also change the dimension style here in properties menu. Just like you can change layer, you can change color, line type, you know, all that stuff. All that stuff can also be changed in the properties layer. There's always more than one way to skin a cat here in AutoCAD. So I just try to give you as much context and as many options that you can kind of hone in on as you find your own kind of drafting flow. And with that, let's go ahead and get these dimensions on. Again, I'm not going to fast forward it today. Let's just work through it together and go from there. So make sure we have our custom dimension standard set globally. Grab your dimension tool. Alternatively, you can type DIM enter and go ahead and follow along with me. So you can just kind of snap it out here. One thing that I like to do as I dimension is just try to place them, you know, maybe 5 inches or so outside, I'm sorry, like ½ an inch or so outside the actual part. So I just snapped the base point right to the part, right to this vertical line, and then selected the dimension again, moved it out ½ an inch. Again, that's just me. I just kind of like that attention to detail in my dimension schemes. Like here, starting at this point, because that's the second point I chose, I'm going to type 0.375 here. And then I'm going to do from this point, and the second point you choose is the one where it's going to dimension from here. So from there, I'm going to say 0.75, and that gives me a nice staggered, even looking dimension there. So again, I'm not grading specifically for that. As long as your dimensions aren't overlapping each other or outside the title block, that's what I'm looking for. This is just some extra context to give you some more ideas of different types of drafting standards. Now for this dimension here, let's go ahead and pull it like that. And this one, because I've done this before, just do like 0.625 on that one. And then we're going to grab another dimension from here to here. Bring that out. And it should be like 0.375. That's a little close. So you can leave it like that. I'm going to just drag this out just a little bit there. There we go. Oh, it's kind of halfway. Looks halfway at least. And we're going to come back and put some angles in here, but let's just finish with our linear dimension tool here. Top to bottom, 0.5, enter. Go. 0.5. Now notice, since I'm using this type of dimensioning, when I'm adding an actual, I'm saying I want it typing in 0.5 enter to set the dimension at a specific distance. Always grab from the farthest point first and the outside point second. Because if you don't, when you do this pull out like this, it just doesn't work. Sometimes it will. If you're like way down here, it'll probably work. But if you try to pull it up and out like this, it's not gonna, like I'm typing 0.5 enter, and oh, so it did something, but it doesn't, it's not even 0.5 from here. So always remember, if you're using this type of thing, to pick the innermost point first, the outer point second, and then you can type whatever dimension it is, enter. One more on this view. And now we've got two more dimensions that I'd like to see. And that is they're going to be angular dimensions. So you can do it. If you zoom in, you can kind of like grab where there's not a pick point and select both lines to get an angular dimension. That being said, it's just easier to come up to the drop down, select the angular dimension tool, and then you can click the first line, click the second line, and then as you drag it around, you're going to have different placement options. Grab it so that the 124 is kind of like just above that cyan hidden line there. We're going to grab it just like that. I don't know if I've told you this before, but if you've already used a tool, the last tool you've used, you can actually just click the space bar and it will bring it back up. So I just click the space bar. I'm already back into my angular dimension tool, and I can go ahead and place. And with that, we have our sheet 2 completed. First thing, let's just go ahead and delete this border here. Remember, we were just kind of using that to get a general placement. And then what we can do is come into Paperspace. So this is sheet 1. Sheet 2 right now still has the same drawing on it because we haven't moved the viewport yet. Remember, the viewport is the border that we put in here when we first created our title block that we're looking through like a window. So on sheet 2, go ahead and double click inside the viewport and it should bold all around the perimeter. Then go ahead and unlock it. Click this little lock button that we had selected the first day. Go ahead and click that. Make sure your scale is still 1:1. If you accidentally zoom in or out, your scale is going to change down here. You can just click on it and make sure it's 1:1, just like that. Now, once you're double clicked inside your viewport and it's unlocked, when you hold down your middle mouse wheel to pan, you can pan over where the viewport is looking in model space. Because remember, in model space, we have both of these drawings right next to each other. So what we're doing here is we were zoomed in on this view. All we're doing is kind of shifting over, making sure we are still in 1:1 scale. And then lock the viewport, make sure you're in 1:1 before you lock it, or else it's not going to come out. It's not going to look correct. It's not going to be to scale in your final drawing. Go ahead and make sure it's locked. You could double click out, or to get out of the viewport. I think I mentioned this the very first day. If you're like way zoomed in and it's not, and it's unlocked, it doesn't work to zoom extents, like double click in the middle mouse wheel when it's not locked. So what you can do is just type PS enter. That's Paperspace, and now it gets you out of the viewport. So just to show you that with it zoomed out, I'm in the viewport right now. You can see that it's bolded, and then I'm going to type PS enter, and that's going to get me out of the viewport. So that is one nice thing to know. I'll tell you that, because I had an issue. You always used to have an issue with viewports until I understood them fully. So very powerful tool, but can be a little bit frustrating and finicky. So with that, we have both of our sheets plotted correctly. Make sure you have all your dimensions on here correct. Sheet 1 should be your standard dimension style. Sheet 2 should be your custom dimension style. And with that, we can go ahead and plot. So this week, we're going to plot both of these sheets into a single PDF. And it's a very similar, but also very slightly different process to plot. So, so you're just going to click on sheet 1, hold down Shift, and then click on sheet 2. Do not have model selected. When those are both highlighted, you can right-click, publish selected layout. And if for some reason you have another sheet here called model, which if you accidentally select all three, for example, that can happen. All you have to do is just click on this, left click, and then click this minus, and that'll get it out of there. But you can't have the model in there. It's going to plot strange. It's going to have two correct sheets and then one, you're just going to have like a weird view of your model space. So just click on sheet 1, hold down shift, click on sheet 2 to select both. Then under the page setup dropdown, click on hack title block. And from there, we're just going to publish, browse to your student folder. It doesn't pop right back up. It usually, for you, it'll probably be your desktop. I have mine set to go to my work files. That's why it popped into that other folder. But yours likely will just go to your desktop. You can click on your folder, Lab 4, submissions. You won't have anything in here yet, a PDF, but save it as Lab 4 space parentheses, all caps, ALL, and parentheses, space dash space, and then your initials. So please submit with that exact naming convention. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, it doesn't immediately happen. It takes a second. It's not like when you just plot a single sheet where it pops right up. Well, actually, it might not pop right up if you're using Microsoft Print to PDF. If you are plotting through Adobe, it'll just open the PDF when you plot a single sheet. When you plot a batch, it's called batch plotting in AutoCAD, what we just did. When you batch plot multiple pages in AutoCAD to a multi-page PDF, it can take a minute. So each page usually takes 5 seconds or something. And it might be 1 second, it might be 10 seconds. Sometimes it varies, I guess, depending on what's in the drawing and all kinds of stuff. So this should plot pretty quickly or publish pretty quickly. But there's this little print icon will start making like a little animation that it looks like it's printing, but basically that's the plot process. And then eventually it'll pop up and it should say, no errors or warnings in the plot. If that does happen, it usually is going to crash anyways. So you just reopen it and then replot it. But I'd say 95% of the time, there's no problem with plotting. If there is, just go ahead and try it again, exact same process, and it will almost definitely work the second time. So with that, this file right here with page 1 and page 2, this singular PDF with all of our layer colors and everything like that is what you are going to submit. So go ahead and get that into the Lab 4 Sheet 2 Dropbox, and I will see you next week.